The security footage showed everything. At 3:47 a.m., someone entered the bridal suite with scissors in hand. When my maid of honor pressed play on that video at my ruined wedding, showing who destroyed my dress, even I couldn't believe who it was. My own mother's face went white as she recognized the person on screen. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up 12 hours to the moment when everything fell apart. My name is Bethany, and I'm 29 years old. I teach 3rd grade at Willowbrook Elementary, where sticky fingers and gap-toothed smiles are part of my daily routine. That morning, May 15th, was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I stood in my bridal suite at 7:45, staring at what remained of my grandmother's hand-picked wedding dress, feeling like someone had ripped my heart out through the delicate lace. The dress wasn't just fabric and thread. My grandmother, Eleanor, had helped me choose it 6 months before she passed away from cancer. She'd run her weathered fingers along the pearl beading and said, "This is the one, sweet girl. You'll look like an angel." Now it looked like someone had taken every ounce of their rage and carved it into the ivory silk. Who would do this? The question came out as a whisper, but inside I was screaming. My future mother-in-law, Constance, stood in the doorway, her lips pursed in that familiar expression of disapproval I'd come to know over the past 3 years. At 58, she carried herself like royalty, reviewing the peasants. As a retired bank manager, she had opinions about everything, especially about her son marrying an elementary school teacher who made $42,000 a year. "Maybe it's a sign you're not right for my son," she said, her voice carrying that special brand of condescension she'd perfected. "When things like this happen on a wedding day, perhaps we should listen to what the universe is telling us." The room went cold. My maid of honor, Darcy, my cousin and best friend since we were 5 years old, stepped between us. At 28, Darcy had always been my protector, the one who stood up to bullies on the playground and later to anyone who tried to diminish me. "The universe isn't telling us anything, Mrs. Constance," Darcy said, her voice sharp as glass. "Someone deliberately did this, someone with access to this room." "That's a serious accusation," Constance replied, examining her manicured nails. "Besides, we should focus on the reality here. The wedding is in 2 hours. The dress is destroyed. 200 guests are arriving. The Sterling family reputation is at stake." The Sterling family reputation. Everything always came back to that. Roland's family owned half the commercial real estate in our county. His mother never let me forget that her son was lowering himself to marry someone who finger-painted with 8-year-olds for a living. My mother, Gloria, rushed in then, her face flushed from running up the stairs. "Bethany, the photographer wants to know when to start the getting ready shots," and I told him 20 minutes. But then I saw Phoebe crying in the bathroom, and she wouldn't tell me why. And your father is arguing with the catering manager about the shrimp, and now Aunt Meredith says the flowers are wilting, and what do you mean the dress is destroyed? She saw it then. The tattered remains of what should have been my wedding gown. $4,000 of destroyed dreams, hanging like a carcass on the satin hanger. "Oh my God," Mom breathed, her hand clutching the doorframe for support. "Bethany, sweetheart, what happened?" Before I could answer, more people crowded into the suite. My father Thomas, still arguing with someone on his phone about appetizers. My pregnant sister Phoebe, her eyes red and swollen. My uncle Bernard and Aunt Josephine. Roland's groomsman, the wedding coordinator. Word spread through the venue like wildfire, and suddenly everyone had an opinion about what should happen next. "Call the police," my father demanded, ending his call abruptly. "This is vandalism, destruction of property." "We can't have police at the wedding," Constance said, horrified. "Think of the scandal." "Maybe we can get another dress," Aunt Josephine suggested. "There's a bridal shop 20 minutes away." "Nothing will fit right without alterations," Phoebe said quietly, one hand on her 8 months pregnant belly. "Everything would need to be taken in or hemmed." Through all the chaos, I noticed Darcy standing quietly by the window, her phone in her hand, texting rapidly. She had that look on her face, the same one she'd had in high school when she figured out who was spreading rumors about me. The look that said someone was about to pay for what they'd done. "Actually," Darcy announced, her voice cutting through the noise like a bell, "I have something everyone needs to see." The room fell silent. Constance laughed, but it sounded forced. "This isn't the time for videos, dear. We have a crisis to manage." "Oh, I think everyone will want to see this," Darcy said, holding up her phone, "because I know exactly who destroyed Bethany's dress, and they're standing in this room right now." 3 years ago, when Roland Sterling first walked into my classroom during the school's career day, I never imagined I'd end up here. He was there to talk about real estate development to a room full of 8-year-olds who were more interested in his expensive watch than his PowerPoint presentation. After 5 minutes of watching him struggle to explain commercial property investment to kids who still believed in the tooth fairy, I stepped in. "Mr. Sterling is like a person who builds giant Lego sets," I told my students, "except his buildings are real and families work and shop in them." The kids understood that. Roland smiled at me with such gratitude that my heart skipped. After class, he asked me to coffee to thank me for saving his presentation. One coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a relationship, and now here we were, supposed to be getting married in 2 hours. The Riverside Manor had been my dream venue since I was 16. Overlooking the Potomac River, with its grand ballroom and crystal chandeliers, it was the kind of place where fairy tales came true. My parents, Thomas and Gloria, had saved for 2 years to give me this wedding. Dad worked overtime at his accounting firm, and Mom took on extra shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse administrator. $30,000. That number still made me dizzy. "You only get married once, sweetheart," Dad had said when I protested the cost. "Your mother and I want to give you the wedding you deserve." The morning had started perfectly. I woke up at 5 a.m. in the hotel suite, too excited to sleep any longer. My sister Phoebe was already awake, sitting by the window with her hand on her swollen belly. 8 months pregnant and recently divorced, she'd been living with our parents since her husband Craig walked out 6 weeks ago, claiming he wasn't ready to be a father. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked, sitting beside her. She gave me a weak smile. "The baby's doing gymnastics. Plus, big day and all." "How are you holding up, really?" Phoebe shrugged. "I'm fine. Today's about you, not my drama." Looking back now, I should have paid more attention to the edge in her voice, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, but I was too wrapped up in my own joy to notice my sister drowning right beside me. By 6 a.m., the bridal suite was buzzing with activity. My cousin Darcy arrived with coffee and bagels for everyone, her auburn hair already styled in perfect waves. She'd driven up from Richmond the night before, her car loaded with emergency supplies, safety pins, stain remover, extra makeup, antacids, and even a phone charger. Darcy didn't just prepare for disasters, she anticipated them. "Your future mother-in-law is already here," she warned me, spreading cream cheese on a bagel. I saw her in the lobby terrorizing the catering staff about the wine selection. I groaned. Constance Sterling had been a thorn in my side since day one. Our first meeting had been at an upscale restaurant where she spent the entire dinner listing Roland's ex-girlfriends and their impressive careers. Victoria was a corporate lawyer, Jennifer was a cardiac surgeon, and that lovely girl from the club, what was her name? Oh yes, Anastasia. Her father owns half of Georgetown. The message was clear. I wasn't good enough. A public school teacher from a middle-class family didn't belong in the Sterling dynasty. But Roland had chosen me anyway, and he'd stood up to his mother repeatedly over the past 3 years. Mom arrived at 6:30 with Aunt Meredith and Aunt Josephine, arms full of garment bags and makeup cases. "The flowers are gorgeous, Bethany," Mom gushed. "The peonies and roses look like something out of a magazine. Your grandmother Eleanor would have loved them." Grandma Eleanor. Even 6 months after her death, mentioning her name made my chest tight. She'd been my biggest cheerleader, the one who told me I was destined for great love. When she helped me pick out my wedding dress last fall, she was already sick but insisted on making the trip to the bridal boutique. "This one," she'd said, when I emerged in the ivory A-line gown with delicate lace sleeves and pearl beading. "This is the dress you'll wear when you marry that boy who looks at you like you hung the moon." The dress had been perfect. The seamstress had tailored it to fit like it was made for me. Last night, I'd hung it carefully in the bridal suite, running my fingers over the lace one more time before going to bed. The destroyed dress hung there like a corpse, and I couldn't stop staring at it. Someone had taken scissors to the bodice with methodical precision, creating long, deliberate gashes through the delicate lace my grandmother had loved. The train was shredded into ribbons. Red wine stained the ivory silk in ugly, spreading blotches that looked like blood. This wasn't accidental damage or a prank gone wrong. This was pure, calculated destruction. "Nobody touch anything," my father Thomas commanded, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police. This is a crime scene." "You will do no such thing," Constance snapped, stepping fully into the room. Her navy dress was immaculate, her pearl necklace perfectly centered. "We have 200 guests arriving, including Senator Walsh and Judge Patterson. The Sterling family will not be associated with a police investigation at what's supposed to be a wedding." "Someone destroyed my daughter's dress." Dad's face was turning red, a vein pulsing at his temple. "That's $4,000 worth of damage, not to mention the sentimental value." "Money can be replaced," Constance said coolly. "Reputation cannot. Besides, we don't even know what really happened here. Perhaps Bethany had second thoughts and did this herself for attention." The room went silent. Even the wedding coordinator stopped typing on her phone. My mother, Gloria, stepped forward, her nurse's training apparently extending to dealing with difficult people. "How dare you suggest my daughter would destroy her own grandmother's dress?" Mom said, her voice low and dangerous. "What kind of person even thinks that way?" "A realistic one," Constance replied. "I've seen brides do stranger things when they realize they're making a mistake." That's when Roland burst through the door, his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, his hair still damp from the shower. "What's going on? Marcus said there was an emergency with the dress?" He saw it then, the destroyed gown, and his face went white. "Jesus Christ, Mom, what did you do?" "Me?" Constance's hand flew to her chest in theatrical shock. "I just arrived. How dare you accuse your own mother?" "Because you've been against this wedding from day one," Roland shot back. "You've done everything possible to sabotage our relationship." "I've done nothing but try to protect you from making the biggest mistake of your life," Constance said. "Marrying beneath your station will only lead to regret." "Beneath my station?" I finally found my voice, though it shook with rage. "I teach children. I shape young minds. I make a difference in this world. What exactly did you do with your life besides marry rich and look down on everyone else?" Constance's face flushed. "I ran the largest bank branch in the county for 15 years. "And I teach the children of the people you denied loans to," I said. Meanwhile, my sister Phoebe had sunk into a chair, her face pale, both hands pressed against her pregnant belly. "I think I'm going to be sick," she mumbled. "It's okay, honey," Aunt Josephine said, rubbing Phoebe's back. "The stress isn't good for the baby." More people kept arriving. Uncle Bernard stuck his head in. "Bethany, the photographer wants to know about the timeline. Should we push everything back?" "Push back?" I laughed, but it sounded hysterical. "Push back what? There's no dress, there's no wedding." "Don't say that." Roland reached for me, but I stepped away. "We'll figure this out. We can buy another dress." "Where?" Darcy asked practically. "It's Saturday morning. By the time we get to a bridal shop, find something that fits, and deal with alterations, it'll be evening. What do we tell 200 guests? Sorry, wait 8 hours while we shop?" The wedding coordinator, a woman named Harriet who'd probably seen everything in her 20-year career, cleared her throat. "We could postpone to tomorrow. The venue is available, though we'd have to pay additional fees." "Absolutely not," Constance declared. "Do you know how this would look? The gossip alone would be unbearable. Half of society is here." "I don't give a damn about society," my father said. Guests were starting to murmur in the hallway. I heard fragments of conversation. Destroyed, ruined, disaster, poor girl. Always knew it wouldn't work out. "Maybe this is for the best," Constance said, her voice carrying that false sympathy that made my skin crawl. "When the universe sends such a clear sign, we should listen. Roland, darling, no one would blame you for walking away." "Shut up, Mother," Roland said flatly. That's when Darcy stood up, her phone still in her hand, her expression grimly satisfied. "Before anyone makes any more accusations or decisions, you all need to see what I found. The venue's security footage tells a very interesting story about who was in this room at 3:47 this morning." Darcy stood in the center of the room, commanding everyone's attention with a confidence I'd seen her display in courtrooms as a paralegal. She held her phone like a weapon, and in that moment, I think it was. "Last night, I couldn't sleep," she began, her voice steady and clear. Call it intuition or paranoia, but something felt off. I came down to the venue around 3 a.m. to check on everything one last time. The night security guard, Walter, was doing his rounds. Nice older gentleman, retired cop, loves talking about his grandkids. "This is ridiculous," Constance interrupted. "We don't have time for stories about security guards." "You'll want to hear this one," Darcy said coolly. "When I saw the dress this morning, destroyed beyond repair, I immediately went to find Walter. Turns out this venue upgraded their security system last year after a theft. There are cameras in every hallway with footage stored digitally for 30 days. My mother gasped. "You found video of who did this?" "Walter was extremely helpful," Darcy continued, "especially when I explained that someone had committed vandalism and destruction of property. As a former police officer, he takes these things seriously. He pulled up all the footage from last night and early this morning." She connected her phone to the suite's wall-mounted television. The venue coordinator, Harriet, helped her with the cables, clearly as invested in this revelation as everyone else. "The bridal suite has 2 camera angles covering the hallway," Darcy explained as the screen came to life, "one at each end of the corridor. No cameras inside the rooms, of course, for privacy, but anyone entering or leaving would be caught on video." The footage was black and white, time-stamped at the bottom. The hallway was empty, lit by emergency lighting that cast long shadows. "This is 3:47 a.m., Darcy said. "Watch the left side of the screen." A figure appeared, walking with purpose despite the early hour. They wore a dark hoodie pulled up over their head, obscuring their face, but something about their walk seemed familiar. The person stopped at the bridal suite door and pulled out a key. "Wait," Roland said. "They had a key. Who has keys to this room?" Harriet pulled out her clipboard. "We issued 8 keys total. 1 to the bride, 1 to the maid of honor, 1 to each set of parents, 1 to the bride's sister, 1 to the groom, and 1 to the wedding coordinator, which is me." "So it was someone in the wedding party," my father said grimly. "Someone we trusted." The figure on the screen entered the room. The timestamp kept running, 3:48, 3:49, 3:50. The hallway remained empty. "They were in there for 28 minutes, Darcy said. "Now watch this." She fast-forwarded to 4:15 a.m. The figure emerged, no longer wearing the hoodie, but they were still moving quickly, head down, carrying a bag. "Can you zoom in?" Roland asked. "I can't from this angle, but wait," Darcy said. "Remember I mentioned 2 cameras? The other one is at the opposite end of the hall, near the elevator. Our saboteur had to walk past it to leave." She switched to another file. This footage was clearer, the angle better. The person walked directly under the camera's view, and for just a moment the emergency lighting illuminated their face perfectly. "Pause it there," my mother said, leaning forward. Darcy paused the video. The room went absolutely still. Everyone stared at the screen, trying to process what they were seeing. "That's impossible," Phoebe whispered, her voice barely audible. "There's more," Darcy said quietly. "Walter showed me the parking lot footage too. Same person, same timestamp, throwing items into the dumpster behind the building." She pulled up another video. This one was in color, the parking lot illuminated by streetlights. The figure walked to the dumpster, opened their bag, and threw in what was clearly visible as scissors and a wine bottle. "Walter checked the dumpster an hour ago," Darcy said. "The scissors are still there, along with an empty bottle of Merlot from the bar's stock. Both items will have fingerprints." Roland looked stunned. "But why? This doesn't make any sense." Constance, for once in her life, seemed genuinely speechless. Her mouth opened and closed, like a fish gasping for air. My father's hands were clenched into fists. "I want an explanation, now." The room erupted in chaos. Everyone talking at once, voices rising, accusations flying. Through it all, I stood frozen, staring at the paused image on the screen. The face was crystal clear, undeniable, impossible to mistake. "Play it again," I said quietly, and somehow everyone heard me and fell silent. "Darcy, play the hallway footage again, the second angle." She did. We all watched as the figure walked under the camera, face fully visible for those 2 crucial seconds. There was no doubt. No possibility of error. The evidence was irrefutable. The face on the screen belonged to my sister Phoebe, My pregnant, supposedly heartbroken, living with our parents' sister had deliberately destroyed my wedding dress at 3:47 in the morning. The silence in the room was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Phoebe," my mother's voice cracked on the name. "That's you. That's actually you on the video." Phoebe stood frozen against the wall, her face drained of all color, both hands pressed protectively over her swollen belly. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The designer bag she'd been carrying, the same one visible in the security footage, sat at her feet like evidence at a crime scene. "Say something," my father demanded, his voice shaking with a combination of rage and disbelief. "Explain to us why you would do this to your own sister." "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Phoebe finally whispered, tears streaming down her face. I needed everyone to see that life isn't perfect for everyone, that some of us are struggling while others get fairy tale weddings." "So you destroyed my dress?" I couldn't comprehend what I was hearing. "The dress Grandma Eleanor helped me choose, the last thing we did together before she died?" "Everything is always about you," Phoebe suddenly screamed, her composure shattering completely. Perfect Bethany with her perfect job and perfect fiancé and perfect $30,000 wedding. "Do you know what Mom and Dad told me when I asked for help with the baby's nursery? When I begged them for just $2,000 to buy a crib and changing table because Craig left me with nothing?" She turned to our parents, her face twisted with pain and anger. "You said you couldn't afford it because you'd spent everything on Bethany's wedding. Everything. Your pregnant daughter, who was abandoned by her husband, needed help, and you chose party favors and flowers over your future grandchild." "That's not fair," Mom protested weakly. "We offered to help after the wedding." "After?" Phoebe laughed bitterly. "After everyone celebrated Bethany's perfect love story, then maybe you'd have time for your failure of a daughter. The one who couldn't keep her husband, who's going to be a single mother at 31, who had to move back home like a teenager." Roland stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "None of that justifies destroying property. You committed a crime, Phoebe. This is felony vandalism." "Oh, please," Phoebe spat. "Your mother has been trying to sabotage this wedding since day one, and nobody called the police on her." "I beg your pardon?" Constance finally found her voice. "I may have expressed concerns, but I would never stoop to destruction of property. That's beneath a sterling." "Everything's beneath a sterling except other sterlings," Phoebe shot back. "You've made my sister feel worthless for 3 years, and everyone just accepts it because you have money." Darcy stepped forward with her phone. "Should I call the police? The evidence is clear. We have video, physical evidence in the dumpster, and probably fingerprints on the scissors." "No," I said sharply. Everyone turned to look at me. "We're not calling the police on my sister." "Bethany, she destroyed your dress," Dad said. $4,000, not to mention the sentimental value." "I know what she did," I said, walking toward Phoebe. "I can see what she did, but I also see my sister who's 8 months pregnant, whose husband abandoned her, who's been drowning while everyone else was focused on my happiness." "You're defending her?" Roland asked incredulously. "I'm not defending what she did. It was cruel and wrong, and it breaks my heart that she could do this to me." I stopped directly in front of Phoebe. "But she's still my sister, and she's in pain, and somewhere in her twisted logic she thought this would make her feel better." "It didn't," Phoebe sobbed. "It made everything worse. When I saw your face this morning, when I saw Mom's face, I wanted to die. I almost confessed right then, but I was too much of a coward." Uncle Bernard cleared his throat. "So what happens now? The guests are starting to arrive. The ceremony is in 90 minutes. "There can't be a ceremony," Constance said firmly. "The bride has no dress. This is a disaster." "Actually," Aunt Josephine suddenly spoke up, "I might have a solution." She looked at me with a strange expression. "My daughter Natalie got married 2 years ago. She's exactly your size. Her dress is in my car because I was taking it to be preserved this afternoon. It's yours if you want it." "You just happen to have a wedding dress in your car?" Constance asked skeptically. "I was literally driving to the preservation specialist after the wedding," Josephine explained. "It's been in my trunk for 2 weeks because I kept forgetting to take it. Sometimes procrastination pays off." Aunt Josephine's dress was nothing like the one my grandmother had chosen with me. Where mine had been traditional ivory with delicate lace sleeves, Natalie's dress was modern, sleek, with a plunging neckline and intricate beadwork that caught the light. As Josephine and Darcy helped me into it, I made a decision that would define not just my wedding day, but my entire family going forward. "Phoebe stays in the wedding," I announced, returning to the main suite where everyone waited. "She's still my bridesmaid." The room erupted. My mother stood up so fast she knocked over a water glass. "Bethany, you can't be serious, after what she did." "She destroyed Grandma's dress," Dad added, his face still red with anger. "The dress Eleanor picked out with you. How can you just forgive that?" "I'm not saying I forgive it," I said carefully, looking at my sister who sat crumpled in a chair, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I'm saying she's my sister, and in 20 years I don't want to look back at my wedding photos and see a missing bridesmaid. I don't want to explain to my children why their aunt isn't in any of the pictures." Roland took my hand. "Are you sure about this? You don't owe her anything after what she did." "It's not about owing," I said. "It's about choosing what kind of person I want to be, what kind of family we want to be. Grandma Eleanor used to say that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up for each other even when we fail." Constance made a dismissive sound. "This is exactly the kind of emotional decision-making I expected. No sense of consequences or standards." I turned to face my future mother-in-law directly. "You know what, Constance? You're right. I do make emotional decisions. I chose to love your son even when you made it clear I wasn't good enough. I chose to keep planning this wedding even when you invited his ex-girlfriend Victoria to your Christmas party just to make me uncomfortable. I chose to be kind when you accidentally left me off the Sterling family reunion invitation. So yes, I'm choosing emotion over punishment. I'm choosing family over revenge." For once, Constance had nothing to say. The wedding happened at noon as scheduled. Phoebe stood beside me, tears streaming down her face through the entire ceremony. When it came time for the bridesmaids to give their speeches at the reception, she could barely speak through her sobs. "My sister is the best person I know," she managed to say into the microphone. Today, she proved that love isn't just about the perfect moments. It's about choosing love when someone gives you every reason not to. "Bethany, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it." 3 months later, when Phoebe went into labor, I was the first person she called. I held her hand through 14 hours of contractions, and when her daughter finally arrived, pink and screaming and perfect, Phoebe looked at me with exhausted eyes. "I want to name her Bethany Grace," she said, "after the sister who showed me what grace actually looks like." "You don't have to do that," I said, cradling my tiny niece. "I want her to grow up knowing the story," Phoebe said, "how her aunt chose love over anger, how family doesn't have to be perfect to be worth saving." Little Bethany Grace is 3 years old now. The destroyed wedding dress still hangs in my closet, preserved in a garment bag. Roland once asked why I kept it instead of throwing it away. "Because it tells a story," I explained. "Not the story I planned, but maybe the one I needed. It reminds me that the worst moments can teach us the most important lessons." Constance and I have found an unexpected peace. At Bethany Grace's first birthday party, she pulled me aside. "I was wrong about you," she said simply. "The way you handled that day, the grace you showed your sister, the strength it took to continue with the wedding. Roland didn't marry beneath him. If anything, he married up." The security footage from that morning still exists somewhere on the venue's servers. Darcy kept a copy on her phone for months, just in case we needed it. We never did. Sometimes the best evidence is the kind you choose not to use. My wedding day taught me that family isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's the real promise worth making, the vow that actually matters when everything falls apart. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the complicated beauty of family relationships, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever had to choose between justice and forgiveness? Tell me your story in the comments below. And if you want more real, raw stories about love, family, and the choices that define us, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this community where every story matters.